Hey guys, this is a super thanks video. If you want to be in next week's video, you can hit the super thanks button below this video or any of my videos. You can ask me about any of the series I'm currently following on the channel. I'm also going to be going into spoilers for any series I'm going to be talking about. 72 Sam RJ asks, thanks for your video, I really love them. It's been 1.5 years. Hey, thanks Sam, I really appreciate the super thanks. What do you think about Saitama? All powers from God? God must lost his power, that's why he's really doing this, right? So I think you're asking if Saitama's powers come from God, or Saitama stole them from him somehow, or God lost his powers and that's why he's doing this, going after Saitama. So first of all, let me just say that I don't think Saitama's powers come from God in any way. I think what Dr. Zhoniin tells us in chapter 86 is pretty much the truth when he says that he was a normal person of ordinary birth, with an ordinary lifestyle and no particular talent, yet through sheer effort he forced open his limits and demolished his limiter. Like, I think that's where it starts and ends. Like, there's nothing special about Saitama other than he was just the seemingly first person to remove his limiter, possibly. Now, as for God, I do think he lost his powers, and he's definitely going after Saitama for a reason, but I don't think it's because he lost his powers. More so that I think Saitama is ultimately a threat to him. But before I go any further, let me just say that it's really hard to figure out exactly what's going on, because we don't really have that much information yet, but what we do have, or what we can try to make of some of these potential clues that one gave us, might give us a clearer image of what is truly going on. So in chapter 119 of the webcomic, we find out about the cruel dragon and the saints and the death bone and the cubes and all that stuff. And while this is played for comedic effect, and although I do think the cruel dragon is definitely like a real thing, at least in the manga, because we recently saw that his temple arose to the surface from the ocean, but I think this story more so is telling us what happened to God, because it also parallels to the Osiris myth. And I think that God is based heavily off of Osiris, the Egyptian god of the moon. But they tell Saitama that ancient soldiers gathered together and with a great many sacrifices managed to weaken the cruel dragon. And in this case, I think the cruel dragon is the cruel dragon, but also is meant to mirror God. Seal Master separated the essence of the dragon using 9 seal stones and sealed them in 9 temples scattered across the land. And as we see, these seal stones pretty much represent the cubes that we know in the manga. So I think this is what happened to God. Like, at some point in the past, Seal Masters separated his essence and sealed him using the cubes, or the cubes are part of him or something like that. But we see that God is basically trapped, the way that he's pictured in the fetal position, but also the fact that he can never really tangibly interact with our world. He always has to go through somebody else. Another reason I think this is true is because in chapter 162, when Garou hits Saitama with the Fa Jin, it sends like this shockwave through Earth, and that's actually when the cruel dragon temple surfaces from the ocean. But we also see Blast in another dimension with his team reacting to this, and he says the Earth's magnetism and gravitational fields are out of whack. Space is warping and a hole is opening in the dimensional seal. It's going to break. To repair, stat. So dimensional seal, repair it. This is clearly like where God is being held. So I'm thinking that these seal masters or whoever, ancient aliens or whatever, sealed God in this other dimension, and that's why he is currently trapped there. So yes, he did lose his powers, but he still has them in a way. He just can't use them. And as for why he wants Saitama or why he's interested in him, and I assume this is in reference to what had recently been said in chapter 173 by Sitch, when he says that Blast says God is intervening in this dimension more often because something here is attracting its attention, and we see Saitama when he says this. And I think that's because Saitama is like the biggest threat to God, because he removed his limiter. Because going back to chapter 86, Dr. Zhoniin says that an overabundance of strength is a burden to its bearer, giving rise to complications, and those who become monsters shed their original selves and rage out of control. For that reason, God has designed each creature to grow within parameters that allow for survival and preservation of reason, and the mechanism for controlling that growth is called a limiter. Now, when Dr. Zhoniin says God, I think he's probably talking about nature and whatnot. I don't think he really is aware of who God, the being that we're talking about, the main villain of One Punch Man is. I mean, he could, but I don't think he does. But I do think that this is probably one cleverly writing this as he is saying that it is God, meaning that it's possible that God literally put the limiter on humanity, or just most beings that he's able to have interactions with. Now, how he possibly did this, I talk about in my Egyptian mythology Truth About One Punch Man videos, but the long and the short of it is he contaminated the food and the water. But now that Saitama has broken out of that and removed his limiter, so he's essentially unstoppable. He's direct threat to God. So since Saitama has removed his limiter, God has been going crazy and just trying to get through the barrier more, but also summoning more monsters so that they can progressively get stronger and stronger in order to stop Saitama. But another possible reason he's interested in Saitama because he wants to use him as the sacrifice to resurrect him to the earth, because that could also parallel to what Orochi was trying to do with Saitama in chapter 112, when he shows Saitama the altar underneath the Monster Association. Now, of course, Orochi mistakenly thought that this altar was depicting his own resurrection into a god because he couldn't see the full altar with God above him, but he didn't realize that Orochi himself was supposed to be the sacrifice, and he chose Saitama to be that, where he's like, you know, fate led you all the way here to be that sacrifice. Now fight with me like all the other battle trials and offer me your flesh. Now I shall begin the resurrection ceremony of the evil god. So like I said, that could parallel to what God also wants for Saitama. Use him as the sacrifice instead of Orochi. But either way, I think this just ultimately means that God wants to get rid of Saitama because he's his biggest threat. Sean Stables asks, rank class 1A from weakest to strongest in the manga. So here it is. And I think it's pretty clear cut from like 1 to 6, but then after that it kind of gets difficult because there's like an ambiguity of power. Not everybody has shown as much as the others, or everyone in general hasn't really shown that much, and it becomes really debatable. But like I said, I just think the 1 through 6, you know, 1 through 7-ish is way easier to figure out than the rest of them, like in a specific order. It'd be better to like put them in tiers, if anything. Senpai Kizaru asks, longtime supporter, first time donator. Hey, thank you for the super thanks, Senpai Kizaru. I really appreciate it. I know it's headcanon, but I think Emu and Joy Boy are siblings. I think Joy Boy's real name is Ika, hockey backwards, and they were the first 2 aliens on Earth, Sun God Nika or Sun God Ika, almost like Indra Ashra. So I think you're close to the truth. Now at this point, obviously we don't know what the truth is. We all have our own theories, but I do think at least one of them is an alien for sure, and that's Emu. I think she's the moon princess, kind of like Kaguya-hime from the Tale of the Bamboo Cutter. And I do think you're spot on with the Indra Ashura stuff, because I do think that that is an element of One Piece as well, just like it was an element of Naruto. Same thing with Kaguya and that too. But as for Joy Boy, I really do think that he's probably a giant. I mean, he could be a Lunarian or something, but it just really does seem like he's a giant at this point, and it will probably be revealed that he was once we go to Elbaf in the next arc. And it also could be that they are siblings, but I more so think that they could have potentially been like lovers even. But anything's on the table at this point. We're probably all kind of close to it, but in the end it'll probably be maybe a fusion of the two ideas, or it's none. Lazone asks, well, this is my first time using this super thanks. Hey, thank you, Lazone. I appreciate it. I just want to know how addicted you are to gamer subs, and what do you think of Schlatt? So I wouldn't say that I'm addicted to gamer subs, but I do drink it a lot. And it's because I like it. I think it's a great product, and it really does work. Like, I used to drink coffee before that, but now that I have gamer subs, there's really no reason to drink it anymore other than you just liking the taste of coffee. But gamer subs has other stuff in it than just caffeine. It has like nootropics, and it just makes you feel just so focused and energized and just ready to go. I'd like to think that I consume it responsibly. And as for Schlatt, I really like him. I think he's a great creator. I've seen a couple of his videos and they were really entertaining and funny, and he definitely deserves to be where he is right now. Ma'ab Safar asks, hey Zhoniin, in the webcomic, what do you think Machine Gods meant when they say that if Genos masters his abilities to perfection, then he can aim for the top spot of the hero world? Does this mean that his final upgrade could be stronger than Tatsumaki? So Ma'ab is referencing the latest chapter of the webcomic, 141, when after Genos uses his super magnetic core, he hits Machine God Ray with it, but it doesn't really do much. And Machine God Tech says that that's quite a luxurious ability he has. If he could have been able to master it to perfection, he can aim for the top of the hero world. So yeah, I do think eventually Genos will be at the top. I don't know if he'll necessarily like literally be number 1 or number 2, or even stronger objectively than Tatsumaki, but I do think that he will eventually get to that tier of strength. I mean, I think that he'll kind of have to if he's going to cleanly defeat Drive Knight, because I think that Drive Knight is going to become extremely powerful by the time he has his final fight with Genos, like above dragon level strength for sure. So Genos kind of has to be at that level too to defeat him. And we see that at the end of this chapter, he does kind of get like at least a final upgrade from Hussein. Zeno, but I don't think that will be like his final upgrade. He'll probably get that from Metal Knight maybe. But yeah, he will be at the top, but I don't know if like he'll be like literally objectively number one. Vextifer says, the deviation for the webcomic and things getting so over the top, I love it. Such a ride. Feeling like this redraw was made for you, Zhoniin. Hey, thank you for the super chat, Vextifer. I really appreciate it. Sorry that I got around so late to checking this. I didn't know how to view the super chats until like 2 days ago, so I'm sorry. But Vextifer is saying this because of the chapter 164 redraws that we got. And yeah, you're very much right. Jim V asks, in the entire One Punch Man Egyptian mythology theory you're doing, and just One Punch Man in general, Sonic is, in my opinion, the greatest outlier, as early as he's focused on as sort of a main character and emphasizing how he wanted to defeat Saitama, but continuously failing. So yeah, I do think Sonic is pretty important to the overall story, but in relation to the Egyptian mythology stuff, I'm not sure who he represents. Although I'm sure that he does, I just never really looked into it that far to see like all of the main characters. Like I do think Sonic, Flashy Flash, and My Mask represent Egyptian gods as well, but I'm just not sure which ones. Symbiote says thanks. Hey, thank you Symbiote for the super thanks, really appreciate it. Mithra D says thanks. Thank you, Mithra. I would try to say your last name, but I don't want to butcher it, but thank you for the super thanks. Crazy Beatrice says thanks as well. Hey, thank you for the super thanks. Really appreciate it, Crazy Beatrice. And JMB says thanks too. Thank you for the super thanks, JMB. So that's it for the video today, guys. Once again, thank you to everyone who gave me a super thanks. And if you guys would like to be in next week's video, again, just check out the super thanks button below this video. And if you liked it, give it a like and have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.